On the Jacob Buer Show today, I am so happy to be joined. I say the word happy too much, but I really am happy when I get to interview people. I'm so happy to have on Hank Ruff.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me on.
You are probably my 15th singer this year. So, really appreciate you joining. I never had done so many musical interviews in a year between bands or country music people, but happy to have you on today. So, take us through how did you kind of get started in music?
Oh man, that's it's been a long time coming. I started playing in my dad's band from the time I mean, pretty much since I could walk. My uncle actually made me, we called it the canjo, and I'm pretty sure you've probably never heard of the canjo because I think only one canjo has ever existed. It was a meter stick, like a meter stick with a soup can screwed into the bottom and a string coming out of the soup can to the end, and it had one string that made one sound, and I played the canjo from the time I could walk in my dad's band. But then once I could actually start playing the mandolin, it was small enough that I could pick it up and play a few notes. I started out playing mandolin in my dad's band for years when I was little, and then throughout college is when it really started growing and growing. I really spent a lot of time in high school working on guitar playing and becoming a better guitar player. And then I played for Clayton Anderson, one of my good buddies. I played lead guitar for Clayton for a couple of years at the start of
He's
college.
been on the show as well.
Oh wow. Well, yeah, Clayton's awesome. So I started out playing guitar for him and then, started building a fan base at IU that just has kind of grown and grown and expanded well beyond now, since then.
For sure. Yeah. And of course, for you, what style of music would you say? Um, and I know it is, of course, but for others who might not know, what style of country do you kind of tend to stick with for the most part?
Oh, I would totally call, my stuff neo-traditional country. In that same like John Party type vein where when you turn it on, my whole goal for my original music is when you hear it, you don't have to wonder what station you're on. You'll know you're on the country music station and you're not like, huh, maybe this is the pop station. Um, I'm big on the fiddle, steel guitar, in my songs, and that twangy, hardcore, traditional like 90s country stuff is what I love and kind of a heavy influence on my music. But I also clearly have elements of a lot of mainstream, newer modern sounds infused with it. So I'd say neo-traditional seems to be, I think, the best term if you had to classify my songs.
For sure. And for you, of course, take me through. Obviously, last or a few weeks ago, you were in Kyrgyzstan because your mom is there, if I'm correct. How's
Hmm.
Kyrgyzstan? I thought that was pretty unique. I just gotta ask that real quick.
It was cool. It was a beautiful country. Tons of mountains that are completely undeveloped, so it's just beautiful nature outdoors. We did a bunch of horseback riding through all these mountains with some locals, and they had a guitar, so I ended up playing some tunes for them. Played them some of my tunes. Played them Country Road. That song is pretty incredible to be able to go to anywhere in the world, pretty much, and a lot of people know that John Denver song, Country Road. So that was kind of fun to play some tunes for them and some songs that they even knew. So. Kyrgyzstan was awesome. My mom's enjoying it over there. She's got another 7 months there. So I hadn't seen her in 5.5 months. That's the longest I've ever been without seeing my mom. So it was nice to see her again.
Awesome. Um, and she's proud of you, I'm sure. Take me through a little bit then for you, of course. You've put out quite a couple of songs that have gotten some pretty good attention. One song's even almost closing in on 1 million on Spotify. But for you, do you have a favorite song and a favorite venue? I think those two kind of tie into the same.
Yeah, I mean, I think a favorite of my own songs, I assume you mean, uh, I
Yep.
would say, if I had to pick one, I've been asked this a couple times and I'm always torn. But if I have to pick one, just for I guess overall how I feel like it turned out and how I feel about the cleverness of the song is I'm not crazy, but I'm out of her mind. That's a cut we put on the Hellbender EP, which is that EP we put out about 2 years ago that we got all the way to #1 on the iTunes All Genre chart for a day. So I was proud of that whole EP. But my dad kind of had that, that song, that idea. I'm not crazy, but I'm out of her mind, and I always loved loved that tune. And so I kind of put my own spin on it, did a lot of melodic stuff to it to change up, and I'd say that's probably my favorite of my songs to do. It's a slow crying your beer, man. It is crying your beer, slow heartbreak country, like George Jones to the bone type song. So I'd say that's my favorite song. If I was picking favorite venue, I've got to give it to the Bluebird, right? The hometown spot. I mean, I owe a lot of the opportunities I've been able to now have grown. It all started at the Bluebird. So that's where I built up a strong grassroots Hoosier fan base. It's what's allowed me to open for some big artists at the start early on, and now, you know, from those early days, it's a domino effect. All kinds of stuff has happened. So I got to give it to the Bluebird. If I was picking a non-hometown venue, Brick Street maybe in Oxford, Ohio, that place is crazy. They're 18 plus, which has been nice because then you get to have the whole college crowd there. You don't have to worry all half the students there can't come to the show. Everyone.
What if Purdue and IU did that?
It would be a game changer, and I would love that. I would love that. I wish we could do it. I think maybe it needs to start from the state, so you might be sitting where we need to make that change happen with all 18 plus.
I work in the election office, ironically. So, but I've had state reps on the show, so
Maybe you mention
maybe
that idea to them.
I'll have to see what I can
It'll
do.
help us independent country music artists. We'll be able
Yeah,
to have more people come to our shows, you
that's a
know.
good point. And that's something that I think is huge too. Is even if you can't purchase alcohol or something like that, just have the people out there and do it. But also, I mean, I don't like to put my opinions out as a journalist, but on this one, I'm going to put my opinion out. It's 18 to 22. Things are going to happen. And that's the experience. And that's what we've been doing since George Washington was here. And it's not going to change in 2040. It isn't going to change in 2030. So let's just kind of move past it. Like, we've been around for 250 years doing it. So, like, nothing's going to change. Same generation's going to be doing the same thing. They like music and they like all those college things. And I'll just leave it at that. But
Uh-huh.
yeah, so that's kind of my perspective on which I never ever really give my opinion on the show. It's always about the person I'm interviewing, but I had to put that out there.
I imagine you wouldn't have too much arguments against that one from too many people. I don't disagree with that right there. I think it would definitely not hurt at least the music venues that there were so many shows, when I was early college that I would have loved to have been able to see just to experience the music, and I didn't get to. So yeah, maybe one day some other kids won't deal with the same issues that
For
we did.
sure. I think kind of two other quick questions I have is one, what is something that I guess who's the country artist that has inspired you? I ask every single artist this question. When I had John Rich on, even though he's with Big and Rich, which to most people might be pretty big, I still asked him, who's somebody that you've been inspired by? He said Johnny Cash. When I asked Weezer's bassist last week on Pretty Big Band, I said, do you have somebody you've looked up to? He's like Led Zeppelin. So for you, who is that person that maybe you look up to?
Well, real quick before I answer that, that's funny. John Rich mentioned Johnny Cash because we played Friday in way up north, northern Indiana, Griffith, Indiana, and the band that opened up for us, they were awesome. It was a Johnny Cash tribute band, and this guy, you would have thought he was Johnny Cash when he walked up. He sounded like Johnny. He looked like Johnny. He was awesome. So I got the closest I'll ever get to see Johnny Cash was this past Friday. They opened up for us, so that's funny that John Rich said that. But my favorite, I'd say my all time, if I was having to pick one, if I'm being honest, country music is it's all I listen to, it's all I love. I mean, there's some old school blues and rock and roll, some old Chuck Berry, Howlin' Wolf that I do listen to. But as far as it goes, I listen to a lot of country music and Dwight Yoakam. If I had to pick one person, that late 80s, Dwight Yoakam stuff has always been, I'd say Dwight is my guy if I had to pick one. But I love that old school like Buck Owens, all the Bakersfield stuff, Merle Haggard and Dwight Yoakam, Buck Owens. So I have to go with Dwight Yoakam.
Solid pick. And what's a shame, and I hate to say this and go on a little tangent here briefly, but there's girls that they said I like country on Hinge or Tinder. Great, I like Hank Jr. And they don't even know who Hank Jr. is, and they're the first in line for Morgan Wallen. And I just want to be clear: anyone who's made it this far in an interview, if you even have gone to a Morgan Wallen concert and you don't know who Hank Jr. is or Dwight Yoakam is, I don't care that he's country pop. You have no business being around the name country if you don't know who Hank Jr. is or Dwight Yoakam.
Well, I'm named. I got the name from Hank Williams Sr., Hank Jr.'s dad.
Yep.
So I've listened to a lot of Hanks through the years of growing up.
There's even Hank the Third, which most people may not know who he is, but I've tried to get him on the show. Actually, I've been rejected, but shout in. But yeah, if you don't, to any person who's listening this far, don't pull up to Bailey Zimmerman or Morgan Wallen and not know who Hank Jr. is or Dwight Yoakam or Willie Nelson. If that's you, I don't have any words to say. Obviously, if you're a Swift and you know who Dwight Yoakam is, I'll give you a pass on that. But if you're pulling up to Morgan Wallen or Luke Combs or Chris Stapleton and you don't know who Dwight Yoakam is, you have no business being involved. So that's just my perspective. One other question that I have is advice that you have for people. And by the way, if this is anyone's first time listening to this show, typically I don't chime in as much. But because me and you are around the same age and we're both from Indiana, this is a different type of interview compared to, when I had John Rich on or Snoop Dogg's dad. It's a kind of different there. We have a lot of the same similarities and interests. But so I do apologize for speaking quite a bit during this. But to you now, what advice do you have for people? And then who would be your dream artist to perform with?
Oh man. Um, the advice, I think it's hard because obviously there's cliche advice of like, never stop, never quit. There's all, and those are fine. I'm never like, oh, but I mean, I think really what's worked well for me is that I really spent a lot of time before I started. I was gigging with my dad's band, but it was, once I really started doing this, even semi-professionally to start, I had spent years just sitting in my living room playing to songs and listening, really learning about the history. So my advice for someone wanting to do, I guess, country music, this would be, or any genre in whatever genre, is I made sure. I mean, I listened to 50s country all the way to modern country. So I really focused before I started really doing it to know and understand the genre and the history and different influences and different sounds, and really trying to hone in on making sure that if I was going to be singing country music and if someone else was wanting to sing pop or whatever, blues, whatever genre it may be, I wanted to make sure that I felt like I could talk to anyone about country music and feel like I know all kinds of things about it, from starting from the real formation of country music, of commercial country music in the mid 1930s, from Jimmy Rogers and the Carter family and that stuff. So I think it's important to have those understandings because I think it makes you more able to really immerse yourself and be successful in the genre. And that's from that standpoint. The one other thing that I definitely would say to a lot of people is, a lot of people when they're kids, they start out just playing in their room and playing on their own, just trying to play, let's say a Taylor Swift song, trying to play Love Story, let's say, and they're just playing alone, not to the track, they're just playing it. And what I've seen from some people, young people, that's been problematic is they then don't form rhythm and be able to play in time and play with a band because they're so used to just being able to play in whatever timing they want because they're not playing with anyone. So making sure that you're playing to maybe the track to start out, playing to, you know, Save a Horse, Ride a Cowboy by Big and Rich will say, playing to the actual track and making sure you're feeling how to stay in time with the whole group and not just, playing alone by yourself, I'd say is a huge thing that when you're starting out is important to do.
I hadn't thought about that, and no prior musician has said that. So thanks for sharing that. Appreciate that a lot. That's a new perspective, by the way. So, wow, that's a new perspective for me. And I've interviewed quite a bit of people lately
Well,
in music.
well, I'm saying it because I've seen it be an issue, and it makes sense. If you're not playing with anyone else, you can play whatever timing you want. It doesn't matter. It's just you and your guitar. But once you get in a band setting and once you're trying to play in a band, it becomes you can't do it. So, yeah.
Dang. So, and then kind of the last one, a quick little one to close out. Who would be that dream guest to play with? It could even be a duo, it could be a band. So yeah, you never know who listens. John Rich was on, so you never know who listens. I don't think he listens to my interviews, but you never know if Willie Nelson somehow tuned in. Highly doubt that one, but spit out a name if you don't mind, or even maybe three.
Okay, I'll spit out some names and then I got one. I don't know why I didn't think of this till just now. The John Rich, I've got one funny John Rich story that maybe we'll be able to get it to him somehow. It's a funny story, but dream a dream collab. If I you know what? I'll narrow it down. You said I could do three. I won't do three out of the way. I'll meet in the middle and go two because one would be hard. I'm gonna say one of a legend. I'll do one that's a legend in country and one that's maybe a newer collab.
Yep.
One country music. I'd be nervous to sing next to him because of how good I think his voice is and how incredible of a singer he is. But I'd think John Anderson, if you know John Anderson, some
Yep.
90 straight to
John
keep
Rich was with
trying.
him a few weeks ago.
That they wrote a song together that I love called Shutting Detroit Down, so that makes
Yep.
sense. John Rich and John Anderson are buddies.
He
So
was
John,
in not Brownsburg, Nashville, Indiana a few weeks ago.
yeah,
John
I went.
Anderson.
I was at that show.
Yep.
I went. So I got to see John Anderson just a few weeks ago. Great show. You said John Rich mentioned hanging out with him
No, I
backstage.
saw it on his social media.
Okay. Yeah, so I went to that John Anderson show, but I'd say John Anderson would be a dream collab for, kind of a country legend. And then if we're going newer guys, and I've kind of, gotten to talk with this guy for, a while now. Honestly, in 2017, I didn't realize it till I tagged him in a story at one of his shows, and we were talking after, and it turns out we had been talking since 2017. Zach Top, if you heard of Zach Top,
Yep, he's
I just
one of the
love what he's
fastest.
doing. He is bringing the country back. He is bringing it back to the roots, and he's appealing to the young crowd, which is tough to do, playing that old school stuff, and it's clearly coming back. So I'd love to do something with Zach. Hell, just have him play guitar on a song. He's a great guitar picker too. If you have heard him, he plays some great leads. So I'd probably say I'd love to do a tune with Zach. So. Those
And
those two would be
someone
the
told me to get him on the show before he explodes, so I've been told that.
yeah, he's a great guy. He's a nice guy. I've been around him quite a few times now, and he's a nice guy. So
For sure. Well, Hank, I appreciate you coming on. If you don't come to Purdue, if you do come to Purdue, I might. I wonder how to get a neon cactus since I'm not 21. I think we could find a way to make it happen. But if not, I'll have to come down to Bloomington and bury my gold for the weekend. I guess. Kidding about that. Um, but I hope to see you perform live.
Yeah, you'll have to make it. You'll have to make it to the show either in Bloomington or hopefully we get to the Neon Cactus. Maybe we'll be playing a show with John Rich at some point, and we'll all get together. And
For
that
sure.
reminds me that John Rich story, that final got a final story about John Rich. So I spring break early college a few years back. I wasn't 21 yet. Me and my buddies, we went to Panama City Beach in in Panama City, and there's a place there. I think it's called Spinnakers, and John Rich had just released his Redneck Riviera whiskey. It had just been released, this new whiskey, and he was promoting it, and he was doing a whole run, I think, a spring break run all over Florida, and he was coming one night to Spinnaker's the week we were there. And so I was like, boys, we gotta go see John Rich. He went and he played like 5 songs, some great songs. He did a Johnny Cash cover, so that makes sense that he loves Johnny, and then promoted the whiskey. And he pulled out a tray of this new Redneck Riviera whiskey. And Spinnaker's was 18 plus. They were an 18 plus venue. And he's handing out free shots of this Redneck Riviera whiskey. And I'm near the front. I got up near the front to see this, and my buddies all with me. And John's handing these out, to people. And he gets to me and he's looking right at me. He has the shot. They were poured in shot glasses. He has it in his hand. He's about to hand it to me. He's looking me dead in the eyes, and he pauses. He pauses and he says into the mic, he goes, "Man, I'd love to give you one, but I think you might be about 17." And he pulled it
Oh,
away. And he didn't. And my buddies were laughing their butt off. I was only, I think, 18 or 19, but my buddies were laughing their butt off. He was
wow.
about to hand it to me, and he stops. He goes, "Man, I'd love to give you one, but I think you might be about 17." And I'll never forget that. My buddies gave me a hard time the rest of the
Well, if
week.
I ever, which I've not met him in person, I spent 20 minutes interviewing him last month. But if I ever do get to meet him in person, I will have to bring you with me to that. When I had mentioned to him and said, "Why don't you pitch your whiskey brand on my show?" The first thing he said was, "If you are of drinking age, of course." So I don't want to throw John Rich under the bus for being a bad guy or anything there. Really great guy. But Hank, I really appreciate you coming on the Jacob Beer show. Obviously, nothing you said would get you in trouble today or me. So appreciate you coming on. It won't be banned, and look forward to seeing you play live
Yeah, thanks for having me. We'll see you at a show soon. We'll have to meet up.
for sure. Thank you.
Thanks, man.